we might get started. I'll just do a little introduction, and then we might just do a go round and everyone can introduce themselves. And then we've got just 3 really short presentations from Clytie and Rickard and Anne-Charlotte about some policies that they're familiar with, just as a way to sort of whet our appetite and to get us thinking about the sort of policy arena. So the seed for this session came at the summer winter school this year. Those of you who've done the summer winter school know that one of the things we do across 2 days is to have a series of panels. And this year, one of the panels we ran was on policy and thinking about community economies and policy. And I think at the introduction to that panel, Kath said, in a way, community economies researchers have sort of had skirmishes with policy, but haven't, directly head-on engaged with policy agendas, and in particular thinking about what would a community economy policy agenda look like, and what would happen if we started inventorying all the sorts of policies that were supporting community economies. And Hannah and I both said, oh, that's something we really would like to talk about more. And so that became the basis for this session, workshop really. So the idea is that we'll have these little presentations that will whet our appetite, and then we'll think about how we might do a workshop, how we want to organise ourselves to potentially both inventory existing policies that we know of, but also, thinking about inventing policies and what would community economy policies to address some issues actually look like. So let's just do a little go round, and maybe, because we're a relatively small group, get people to tell us where you are and when you are. So what time is it for you? And maybe just a couple of sentences about your interest in policy. That would be good just to get a sense of that from people in the room. So I might just do this as a go round based on who's on my screen. So Clytie, you're in my top left.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Clytie, and I'm at the moment here in Brisbane in Australia. It's 5 p.m. here, and it's quite a nice day, quite warm. And I'm sort of very interested in policy in the sense that I worked for quite a number of years in council in the waste area, but I've also been in community and sort of setting up community gardens and composting and all that. And I've seen like this huge disconnect between community and what's going on there, and then council, who is supposed to be working for community, and the policy doesn't really reflect necessarily what's good for community. So that's sort of been my interest in that.
Right. Thanks, Clytie. And you're going to tell us a little bit more about a couple of policies that you're particularly interested in a moment. So Marcus.
Hello, I'm Marcus. I joined from Leipzig in Germany. Here it's 8 a.m. and sunny, which is nice. And my interest in policy, basically, I'm always facing the question, right, what's policy relevance of this? And you should have some answers. I also want to have some answers. I want to get some inspiration here.
Right. Thanks, Marcus. Heidi.
Kia ora koutou. I'm a PhD student. I'm in New Zealand, in Hawke's Bay, the North Island, and I am studying food security and looking at the sort of political economic structures of our food system and comparing them to a diverse economies or community economies approach. I've got a background in the public sector, and my interest in policy is knowing how we can infiltrate the policy arena with community economies thinking.
Great. Good on you, Heidi.
Thank you.
And Charlotte.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to see you all again. My name is Anne-Charlotte. I am from France, but I am currently based in Uzbekistan, where it is 12 p.m. right now.
And Charlotte, it's just a little bit difficult to hear you. Could you maybe get the microphone closer?
Is it better?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so my family background is a family of small businesses, bakery business, and my own background is in academia, specifically development studies. And so I could always see that public policies had objectives that were very different, but what was happening in practice in the field of small and medium enterprises. And I discovered that the diverse economies, community economy scholarship could help me bridge the gap in between the two, which is why I'm working in this field right now.
Great. Thanks, Anne-Charlotte. And Anne-Charlotte will talk a little bit about a policy example from her work in a moment. Hannah, our co-conspirator.
Morning, everyone. From my end, it's just after 8 o'clock. I'm in Stockholm, Sweden, and I'm a PhD student at KTH here. And I do research a lot on the level of the municipality here, because they have quite a lot of say and sway in Sweden, the way the governance system is set up. So I'm interested in what municipalities can do to speed along some sort of transition. But I'm also after participating in the summer school online, I'm really struck by, I'm in love with the community economies. So hence the overlap here in policy then and community economies. And I'm also home with a sick child and a sick husband. So we'll see what happens if I have to duck in and out a little bit. But I just wanted to mention briefly as well, this painting that is in the background is actually, it's by a New Zealand artist based in Nelson, but he kind of mixes things from the Nelson region and Byron Bay. So it's a bit of an overlap between some of you as well. so yes, that's the connection to that part of the world as well. So thank you. Looking forward to this.
That's lovely. Thanks, Hannah. Ricard.
Good morning, everyone. I am economics and business professor and researcher in the Universitat Oberta de Catalonia, Open University of Catalonia. It's an online university. This is some special characteristics of this university. I have been involved in the agroecology movement for a long time. As an activist, but at the same time as a researcher, is where I started to work 15 years ago. I started then introduce also my perspective as a researcher. Finally, I did a PhD in this connection with social and solidarity economies that is historically and contemporary very powerful in the city of Barcelona and Catalonia in general. And for this section, I believe that can be interesting also to share my experience as a part of co-creation space with civil society, academia, and the city council of Barcelona, because it's this type of ecosystem that in Barcelona especially works, and we have some learnings that maybe can be useful for the session.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ricard. And Ricard will be giving us some, discussing some of the policies that he's familiar with in a moment too. Elena.
Hello, you can hear me okay? Yes, I'm calling from Norway. I'm on a PhD retreat, so I will also maybe need to leave around 9 when we start our activities.
Okay.
We are on a little cabin trip by the fjord, and I'm working on, for my PhD, foraging of wild edible plants and mushrooms in Norway. So diverse economies, community economies gives me a really wonderful lens there. And I'm interested in policy partly because of what Marcus said. I get the question a lot, what should we change? And partly because of what Heidi said. After the PhD, I would love to be able to infiltrate a bit. And also just because I think that this is a really exciting space to continue to make diverse practices visible. So what kind of language do we need to speak in policy spaces is really exciting to me. Thanks for
fantastic. Thanks. Isaac, minus Lizzie.
Okay, turn the audio on. Hi everyone. So I'm in Sydney at the moment. I'm postdoctoral research fellow nowadays. Still doing research at the moment on mobile financial services in Cambodia and Laos, which I've been doing for 4 years so far, and there's another 2 years on the project left. From a policy perspective, I'm interested in development policy more specifically, I think, than government policy. So where international development agencies where their interests lie with respect to the social solidarity economy and social enterprises more generally, trying to get traction for bottom upwards approaches in policy and development planning rather than a top-down kind of social business as usual approach. I would like to generate more support for initiatives that are strength-based and grassroots focused in a development sphere.
Right, thanks, Isaac. Bianca.
Good morning. I'm Bianca. I'm located in Cologne. It's 8:15 and a quite grey German day. I'm a research assistant at the Department of Economics. And I think it's important to put research into practice. And I'm asking myself often, like, how? And I think political economy is quite important bridge for that. So in the end, policies. But I don't have a lot of knowledge in it, so I'm here to listen and also learn and participate.
Right, thanks, Bianca. Ria.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ria. I'm logging in from Dubai. It's 11:15 in the morning here. And I was part of the summer-winter school this year, which introduced me to community economies. I'm a PhD student in anthropology, and it helped me make sense of all of my enormous piles of data. And the reason policy interests me is because I work with organic farmers cooperatives in India, which came about because of a lot of policy innovations, and now their experiments are being scaled up / adapted / diluted in the form of policy. So I'm super excited to hear from all of the presenters today and happy to be here.
Right, thanks, Ria. Kath.
Yeah, hi everybody. Kath Gibson, and I'm here in Canberra in Australia. So it's 6 o'clock, sort of getting towards dinner time, past a bit different time from Brisbane, where Heidi, was it Heidi? Oh, no, Clytie is.
Clytie.
Yeah, Clytie, yeah. Yes, I think policy is of interest in lots of ways. And I'm wondering whether it's a way of us kind of connecting a lot of different disparate experiments that are going on in community economies work. And I mean, there's a lot of pressure on us to think about how do these things scale up is the language, but how do community economies assemblages that have more strength than the individual intervention develop so that they can actually help transformative pathways. And I'm thinking policy has to be a part of that. And it could be at different levels. So interesting to think about some examples of national level policy that might actually aid community economies when we know that most policies are actually undermining community economies. So we could spend a lot of time on that kind of thing too. But anyway, that's why I'm thinking the policy thing could be another way for us to strengthen the arguments that we might be making around how to go forward. And I think we've got a lot of work going on particular individual examples of ethical economies, but how do they kind of get integrated into something more? And I think policy has a role to play there, perhaps. But yeah, it'd be great to hear what you've been working on and think through this with you together. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Kath. And Rukia.
Hi everyone. Rukia Kalhanzi, but you can call me Lanzi. I'm a student at Mercy University. I've just joined. This is my second month, and I'm doing a PhD. My background is community development, and my study examines the intersection of three competing systems back in Uganda. That's development aid, social assets, and government initiatives, and what that means for like an everyday woman in rural Uganda.
Great, thanks, Rukia. And Shangzi.
Hi everyone, I'm Zongze. I'm right now in Lund, in Sweden. My focus right now is actually on the AI like policies and also cover the governance on in related to indigenous people, and also cover how to preserve some sort of like indigenous knowledge in the sense that it's just and it's like equitable. So yeah, like I also joined the summer music school this year, and then I really like the community economy approach in a way that to understand. I think it's quite a good lens to look at policies and what is possible. So yeah, that's me.
Great, thanks, Shangzi. And I think I've got everybody. The people moved around a little bit on my screen, but I think we've all introduced ourselves. So the presenters, we've got 3 presenters who are going to talk for 5 minutes each. And how do we get these presenters? We put out an email on the CERN listserv, and these are the people who responded and said, oh, yeah, I'd be interested to talk about a policy. So thank you very much, Clytie and Anne Charlotte and Ricard, for putting your hands up and agreeing to do this. So we might just go in the order that you're on my screen, which would be Clytie and then Anne Charlotte and then Ricard. And we've asked you to try to stick to 5 minutes. So I will time and I'll let you know when the 5 minutes is up. Clytie, did you want to share a PowerPoint?
Yeah. Sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just see when you're ready and then I'll start timing.
1 second. Sharing. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to talk about policy as it relates to how we manage nutrients. When I say nutrients, what we refer to as waste, food and garden waste, like organic waste, you know, scraps from your kitchen or garden or whatever. And so I guess this diverse economies compost bin is based on the diverse economies iceberg, and the idea being that what we see at the top there is the things that are usually visible in terms of how our scraps are managed. So usually they're either sent to landfill or, you know, combusted or industrial centralized processing or anaerobic digestion for electricity, like energy from waste, that kind of things. But those things tend to be very large scale and centralized solutions, sort of technical solutions. They often are the ones that are favoured by councils or policy. But there's all this other stuff going on in the world as well in relation to how we you know, cycle nutrients, everything from people, you know, doing backyard composting to community composting to chooks and even littering, and then there's all the, you know, unseen world of creatures that are also processing this material constantly. So when policy is always focusing on those sort of the big things at the top there, it means that these other diverse economies can go unnoticed sometimes. And so that can have the effect of really sort of, you know, enabling and reinforcing sort of centralized and technocratic and very capitalistic ways of operating. But I wanted to look at an example of, sorry, just trying to move this along to the next one. In France, France has recently, well, beginning of last year, brought out a national composting law, which means that all organic material, so all food and garden scraps and any organic material can't go into landfill. But not only that, it can't be burnt or incinerated or, you know, anything like that. It has to actually be composted. But the interesting thing about this, the way they've managed it, is that instead of prescribing to all the councils that they have to do it in a particular way, they've said, as long as you don't put any of this stuff in landfill, it's up to you how you do it. So what's actually happened is that, you know, you've got everything from the large scale centralized collection systems and processing plants to other councils that encourage more backyard type composting. Then you've got a lot of community composting being supported with funding and programs. Some of these pictures you can see, the one on the top is a community compost hub at the base of an apartment block. So they actually have quite a good system in place of supporting communities to be able to manage those things, and they train people up so that they can look after it and they know what they're doing. And it's really allowed a real diversity of approaches, and you know, depending on the context and the place, these different sort of nuanced ways of managing it have emerged. And then,
so Clytie, that's almost 4 minutes then.
Oh, okay. In comparison with what's happening in Victoria, where the state government is trying to encourage, well, trying to force all of the councils to bring centralised collection and processing, like large scale, big trucks collecting food and garden scraps, taking them off to be processed. Still composting, which is so much better than landfill. However, it's overlooking all these other really great things that are going on, such as the Yimby composters in Castlemaine in Victoria. And they've got a really successful model of community composting, which engages with all these neighbours, and it supports people when they're sick, and really has lots of things that are extra to waste management. But they're concerned that if this comes in, with this curbside collection comes in, that will kill them. And so they're currently in the process of trying to negotiate with the state government to be a different way of doing things. So a bit of a lived example of what could be if there was more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak.
Great.
Thanks.
Perfect. Right on 5 minutes, Clytie. That was great.
Phew. Okay, I'll stop sharing.
And you can stop sharing. Yeah. No, and that's great. The same policy agenda, but very different ways that can be enacted.
Yeah.
So that's great to draw attention to that, Clytie.
Sorry, I'm just trying to work out how to stop sharing. Oh, it's going to take up another 5 minutes.
No, that's all right. Don't panic. I don't know whether I
Here you
can.
go. Stop sharing. Yep.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, so what we might do is just roll on to the next presentation, which is Anne Charlotte. And again,
Can you see my screen?
we can, yeah. But there's also, Anne Charlotte, there's a bit of background voices that we can hear as well.
I'm sorry, I cannot do anything. Can you hear me well, or should I speak louder?
If you can speak louder and closer to the microphone, that would be great.
Okay, so how about this now?
Perfect.
Okay, so I'll start. First, I think I'm going to introduce my field of study. So I am based in Tashkent, which is the capital of Uzbekistan in Central Asia. And I started doing research on small and medium enterprises, which are involved in the acquisition, repair, and reselling of secondhand goods. So when I'm talking about secondhand goods, I'm talking about anything from shoes to appliances to devices, and so on and so forth. Because when I arrived here, I noticed that there were many people involved in collecting these types of objects, repairing them, and putting them back into circulation. And I noticed that it could contribute to policies related to the circular economy, sustainable development, and so on and so forth. So while doing my research in Tashkent, I found out that by observing the way in which these repair professionals were working, there were many different types of skills that could be represented in the way that they acquired, repaired, and resold these second-hand goods. So for example, networking skills are going to be very important for this acquisition of second-hand goods, for making the second-hand goods circulate throughout the country and find new owners. Secondly, another very important skill in this field is going to be creativity, because in order to repair something, you need to be able to have a lot of creative potential within you to find new ways of making the product last longer. Which means that when we talk about creativity, you also need problem-solving skills, problem identification skills. So when I noticed that among these people, there were many skills that were nurtured, developed, and transmitted from one repair professional to the other, I started thinking about the concept of green job. So what is the concept of green job? It is present in many different institutions, from international to national to local institutions. It basically refers to a job that is whose role is to try and preserve the quality of the environment and avoid negative impacts on the environment and society. But what happens in practice is that in practice, we focus more on green transition in the energy sector, on skills training, because green jobs are considered as being high-skilled jobs in opposition to low-skilled jobs, and we focus on green growth. So my question in this research was, how can we create a definition of green jobs that can contribute to or enable community economies development? And in order to do that, I used several ethical actions that I found in the book Take Back the Economy, which was published in 2013. So the first ethical action was establishing businesses that directly address social and environmental needs. And the second ethical action was ensuring safe and sustainable development by encouraging self-employment. And from looking at the skills within these professionals and comparing them to green jobs and using these ethical actions, I came up with different recommendations. So for example, one of my recommendations is using these skills to update the curriculum in technical schools and create a program that is going to teach these skills to future professionals who will then be able to repair and resell different products so that we can extend the life cycle of products. And my second recommendation involves the type of expanding the definitions of the types of businesses that can support green jobs, so that instead of talking about regular jobs in public policy, we expand the meaning of jobs into green jobs, and we can identify more different types of business structure that can promote and enable the development of green jobs. So, for example, I propose that in public policy, we highlight the roles of cooperatives, social purpose companies, and even conventional businesses, and we guide them into ways to promote these green jobs by looking at these repair professionals. And so that's the process that I went through to link public policy to practice within small and medium enterprises. And that's all for my presentation. I hope I stayed within the time.
That's great. That's perfect. That's great. And perfect timing, right on 5 minutes. And Charlotte, great that you're drawing that connection between policy and legal infrastructures and thinking about legal definitions and so on. So thanks for drawing our attention to that. So Ricard.
Hello. Wait, just share the screen.
Great.
Maybe you should see my screen.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Here we go. In my case, it's I believe that it's important to before to share the public policies is to share the context of the city of Barcelona and in general the rest of Catalonia, because the historical approach with the social and solidarity economy is very strong, not just in the political position, especially with the civil society. For more than 100 years, civil society organized around social and solidarity economy. And this is something that it's a strength society in some perspective of collaboration, cooperation, and this type of aspects that are very linked with the community economies. In case of Barcelona, the institutionalization of social and solidarity economy is something that is linked also with the Barcelona Activa. Barcelona Activa is the economic agency of the city council, and some of the areas is especially focused on promoting social and solidarity economies. And the other interesting thing is how this ecosystem connects with the university. I will provide you the perspective of the university, because it's when I developed this policy example about how it works in Barcelona, but maybe I could change my position also from the civil society. This is, I believe, that interesting point, because there are some people who has this perspective of both sides, because indeed is a type of ecosystem. It's not two sides as a citizen or as a part of the organization that is taking decisions. For this reason, it's important also to consider the co-creation as a space of how to build this type of public policies. The example of social and solidarity economy plan for the 2030 as a parallel agenda of the agenda of 2030. No, it's a special plan focused on social and economy. Or the Barcelona Femtech. This is the type of technologies promoted considering the gender perspective. No. For these aspects, also it's also to consider the relevance of the digitalization, and this is really important. This is really connected with the case example that I'm going to explain in the follower slide, because it's how we consider also the principles of the digitalization. This is just one moment, because I am not how to pass the slide. I'm not sure if I am in the.
No, I always. Great, good on you. Done.
Done. You are watching the first or the second slide.
Yeah,
the second slide. Yeah, thank you. We are focusing in the context of a post-COVID crisis, with or during the post-COVID, when the digitalization is a key point, how to solve some special issues about the organization of social and solidarity economy and enterprises organizations. There is a missed attention of how to digitalize this ecosystem, and the city council want to help to support this. And this is a program, a research action program. Indeed, is a thesis also, because Nuria, it was the student that has developed this thesis with my supervision, and this is why we want to present this. But it's also focused on how training, finding, generating a spaces of also finding projects of digitalization in order to allow the community to participate with this match funding formula when you get resources from the civil society, from your community, but also from the public policies. If you get €1 from the civil society, you get €1 from the government. Also how to promote training with digital skills, especially focusing on free and open source software, considering also data management, the perspective of commons data management, and this is something that it's really a contrapoint with the platform capitalism. Is a way that you are also considering the principles of how you share the data that you are creating, and this is also considering this perspective of gender equality, because as the studies show, there is another gap between the women in the participation of the digitalization of the organizations, especially when we consider the leadership of these positions. And we try to generate some strategies in order to engage women also in digitalization of the sector. We work with 180 organizations of the social and solidarity economy, and we have developed a PhD regarding to this, and I believe that it's interesting. There are interesting learnings to share. At the same time, it's important to consider the contextualization, historical, socially, and political situation in Catalonia. Not just in Barcelona, because in Catalonia there is a program of Ateneus Cooperatius. This is a type of organizations that facilitates the organization of social economy enterprises in the whole territory, but it's something that it's really a key point in order to understand how this is possible. Just to that.
So Ricard, that's 6 minutes now.
6 minutes, sorry.
Yeah. Do you want to make just one more point?
No, I just finished.
Okay,
sorry.
That's lovely. Thank you. No, and that's great. And what's wonderful to see here is the role that the university has played in the process of developing policy. That it's the university and civil society being involved in policy development. So thanks very much for sharing that with us. So I'm just wondering, we can take just a few moments if anybody's got any specific questions around clarification of any of the policy details that were presented by either Clytie or Anne-Charlotte or Ricard, whether there's anything that people would like to clarify.
I have something, Jenny. I'll put my hand up.
Yep, no, that's fine, Isaac.
I keep hearing a lot about something that's supposed to be aimed at embedding the commons, and Barcelona is supposedly an example of this. Is something called municipalism or new municipalism, and I don't know anything about it. I just keep hearing this, and it seems like a buzzword that I keep hearing. But so I'm asking Ricard, does the digital strategy have anything to do with the new municipalism approach that I hear so much about from Catalonia?
Thank you for the question. It's an interesting point. When we have been working in the perspective of research, we discovered that the governance is a key point for how to work this space of municipalism in the consideration of public policies, but also to have this consideration to the citizens to participate in the governance of the organizations, but also with the connection with public policies. The CDIM, for example, is a key example because it's a type of platform developed by a university initially, but then is considered for the city council in order to generate a spaces of participation and decision making of citizens for budget or whatever decision, especially focus sometimes in specific areas of interest of the citizens, schools, gardens, urbanism, whatever. The thing is how to engage people in order to participate. But this type of tools has also been adopted for the organizations in order to ensure the governance of the organizations, even though the scalability of the organization. Sometimes there is a tension between the growth of organization, how to this connect with the community, and at the same time keep the principles, the initial principles of the organization. And this type of tools, in my point of view, has allowed also to extend this perspective of how to grow with the ecosystem, and at the same time how to grow in terms of public policies, because this tool has been adopted for the municipalities, and this type of ecosystem works as a key point in the governance, and in this case as a platform that helps also considering this. It's not just a platform, it's an important point, but the platform has its role.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ricard. So I think, Clytie, you put your hand up right at the beginning?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
Okay. No,
It was
that's fine.
Heidi put her hand. Heidi put her hand up originally.
Okay. And Kath, you've got your hand up. So we've got a question from Kath. Ria in the chat's just looking for some clarification, and Heidi's got a doozy of a question that we could spend the rest of the time talking about. So we might try to get a very abridged answer from people about Heidi's question. But Kath, your question first.
Yeah, well, sorry. I mean, it's another question for Ricard, but I was just wanting some clarification of what is actually digitized. Like, what are the platforms doing? And we've got a wonderful member of the CERN Sydney group, Emilise, who's just written a PhD on cooperatives in Catalonia. And what she's showing is how many of them are in professional services, for instance, in law and things that we don't necessarily associate with, not manufacturing necessarily, but all these other things. But I'm just wondering what is the digitization doing to connect? Is it really just about governance methods? Or I don't know whether you can give a short answer to that, but I'm a different generation. I can't quite grasp what digital platformization really does. So if you could just quickly clarify, it'd be great.
I will try to be very short. There are two main positions: the traditional cooperative that has their own model, but the model, even though it's providing services or products or maybe generating community, but not works especially in a digital position. And these the tools has allowed to generally improve the governance and how to grow the organization, at the same time keep the governance of the organization. This is one of the lines of the digitalization. The other is the organizations that the main way that provide services or products or they organize is through a platform, is the platformization of the model, of the business model. Even we can speak about business also, even though we speak about social and solidarity economy and a community. But there is a type of business, maybe selling agroecology products, but the model works through a platform. This is a way that digitalization considers governance, digital tools based on commons, because they want to generate a response to the platform capitalism. This is, for example, works in the case of riders in the city. There are a type of platforms in the capitalist perspective as Globo or Deliveroo or this type of platforms, and from the side of the social economy generate a type of platform and organization to try to generate a type of community, horizontal organization in the sense of more platform cooperativism instead of platform capitalism.
Great, thank you.
Right. Clytie, can you really quickly answer Ria's question in the chat?
Yeah, so in those cases, yes, the question was, are people segregating organic waste at source? So yeah, people, just like in any sort of collection system or whatever, people are separating their food scraps or garden waste and then putting it in. And in France, that's the thing. It's all different ways of doing it, but basically, some of them are where you just put it in a big green bin and a big truck comes and takes it off for composting, or other times it's walking it down to your local community compost hub or whatever. So yes, it's being segregated at source. And how are the various municipal councils implementing this policy? Yeah, and again, in France, it's diverse, and so there's many different ways. And I mean, it's hard to even find information because I don't speak French, but I think that just scratching the surface, looking online, there's so many different models, and that's what I loved about that approach. I'm sure it's not perfect, but compared to that sort of one size fits all, let's just bring in trucks down every street and have more bins, which is fine in some circumstances, but if there's already things going on that are creating and generating community, surely that's the gold standard to support first.
Great, thanks, Clytie. And Charlotte's written something, but Heidi asked about whether the policies, and I guess this is for all of the presenters, Heidi, whether they're a completely new policy or replacing an older policy. So my sense is quickly that they're all in a way new policies, although I guess like the composting one is replacing an old policy, which was that everything just went into one bin. But whether the presenters want to quickly say something about that. Oh, and Anne Charlotte's answered it in the chat. Thank you, Anne Charlotte. And in Ricard's case, it's really a whole new policy arena. It's a new area for policy.
And it occurs to me in Ricard's case that the city itself has had an interest in social and solidarity economy as a commitment for a long time. So this is building on something that's already there. I mean, there must be some opposition as well, but it seems to have been relatively dominant in terms of city politics as opposed to other places. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Oh, indeed, just a brief response for that. There is a change of the government of the city, despite this example that I use it to contextualize the Barcelona. But even though the change of government, the current government has less perspective on social and economy, even though the structure it's already it's still working. And this is something, it's because it's embedded in the civil society. This is a very important role of the civil society.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so that is getting our minds thinking policy and thinking about policy, legalities, role of universities, civic society, organisations, and so on, as well as the state. So the idea was that we potentially break up into groups and do a little bit of the work as in the session description, which is inventorying policies, which is brainstorming policies that people might know of or policy potential that people might be able to identify. There are any number of ways that we could slice this. And for me, there's nothing, I'm not getting any, I'm sort of feeling that we've got lots of different interests, and I'm almost feeling like we could work randomly in groups of 3 or 4, and let each group almost in a small conversation with each other, think about how you might want to work on policies. Elena. You're on mute. Yep.
Yes, just a request that I will leave a little soon, but this is so exciting, and I would love access to some document where I could continue to think through these and add some contributions as the day goes on.
Right. So it's being recorded, and yeah, this would be great. Would be great if this was the start of a conversation. So
I'm just wondering, Jen, can I make a few general comments rather than the ones we've just had up to now are like specific to people? It seems to me there's some themes that might emerge here, and one is that certainly came out of Clytie's discussion, which is, seeing how compost could be not become a commodity, in other words, that it's a form of decommodified activity that's being promoted in some places, whereas in other places it's becoming just another thing that capitalist corporations can move into. And I think that whole move of trying to decommodify those services, basic needs and so on, is a theme that I think community economies work could really focus on more and look at policies that are helping to do that in some way or other. And the other theme, I think, is the commoning aspect of how do we actually have policies that enhance commoning. And to some extent, Ricard's example is a form of that. It's like having a different kind of mechanism for interaction that's much more based on commoning values as opposed to the private corporations. And Anne Charlotte's example is sort of asking for more policy support to support the kind of diversity that could be there in the circular economy, which at the moment is still being commandeered by a kind of capitalist vision of technocratic circularity. So it's again asking for more diversity of enterprise forms in a way. So there are some themes that I think are emerging. I mean, and all of our interests are in increasing well-being in some way or other. We haven't got any policies that are talking about labor practices, but they might come up in the workshop examples. But it seems like, we could, using those diagrams and so on, we could put specific examples, but I wonder whether the sort of transformative pathway themes are going to be around those kinds of things. And then the obstructions to those, which is the other thing, way policy stands in the way of decommodifying or always commodifying, and always tending towards the for-profit as opposed to the not-for-profit, for instance, in any activity. Anyway, these are just a few thoughts of the themes that we might kind of pull on a little bit more.
Yeah. So okay, so Kath has identified some themes. One of the things that we put together, sort of not knowing what people might be interested in talking about, is we put together a series of we drew on resources that we've got that I've put a link in the chat to, which is just different ways we could think about. So Kath's given us some thematic ways to think about the policies. Other ways is to think about what's in that link is thinking about policies and where they might be located in different parts of the diverse economies iceberg. And I see Elena's clapping her hands. The other way is to think about policies, if you scroll down, policies and where they might fit in terms of the diverse economies table. And so, for instance, with Anne Charlotte's policy, just thinking about the diverse economies iceberg, Anne Charlotte is very much interested in some of those hidden work practices that are not being given policy support that exists below the waterline. And Clytie's policy is sort of interested in everything above and below the waterline of the iceberg. But we could think about it in terms of the diverse economies table. And then the other thing was we just put together the community economy coordinates. If you scroll down, you can see the coordinates and thinking, and that's drawing from Take Back the Economy and thinking about some of the policies. And Hannah's clapping her hands with that one. So I mean, one thing we could concretely do is break into groups and work with those diagrams and think about where the policies that we've heard about might fit in there, thinking about those themes that Kath has raised, but also thinking about other policies that we can then think of that might be in conversation with the policies that we've heard about. So how does that sound as a way forward? And I'm thinking we might break up into groups of 3 or 4 and almost let each group decide what they want to do to negotiate it together, unless somebody's got something burning that they really want to address. Okay, all right. So I like that this is going, we're just going to break people up randomly. And I'll tell you how we're going to do it, is we're going to have a 4-minute break. And in the 4 minutes, I'm going to assign people into breakout rooms. And in the breakout room, you have a quick conversation and have a think about what you want to do together. Do you want to work with the policies we've heard about and put them, either take an iceberg or the table or the community economy coordinates, and then maybe just, brainstorm from there? How does that sound? Okay.
I'd encourage people to bring their own other policies to it as well.
To
not
it as
just
well, yeah.
The ones that we've heard of, yeah.
Yep. Yep. No, but just if you want to use those as a starting point, if not, yep. And I maybe we'll do that until past, whatever hour it is, and then we can spend the last little bit doing people showing us what they've done. So, and I know Elaine is going to leave. Is anyone else going to have trouble joining a breakout room? Marcus?
With this craft person, I just cannot predict what will happen.
Okay. All right. So I'll figure that out. So I'm going to say to everybody, take 4 minutes, unless you want to help me assign people to a breakout room. And then when you come back, there'll be rooms set up for you to go into. Okay? Perfect.
Jenny, if I want to engage, can I just make a slide or so, find some space and add some ideas?
Yeah.
Then
Grab it.
do that.
Perfect. That'd be the actual format of the table.
Oh God, yeah. We really don't know. It was super buggy. So I'm just trying to move everything down to the bottom table now and see if that fits better.
Yeah.
So if we're not the first ones to talk, I'll see if I can get it a little bit tidy in together. It was just really weird.
I know, it was like once it got down to the page,
then
it just automatically added in these extra cells, and I couldn't debug it.
No, I've never come across it before. But I'll see what I can do just to keep it a little bit better together.
That's the thing with the G drive stuff. It's not technologically, it's not great. So everybody went and used tables, the community economy coordinates. So maybe we'll just have a look at the first one, which is I've got as page 9 of 19. And yeah, it's done that. It's just for whatever reason, reproduced surviving well and distributing surplus. Apologies, I don't know what that was about. So who was in that group? And do you want to tell us about what you did?
think that was our group, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Marcus and Rukia and Clytie and me. And who wants to report? Maybe Marcus, do you want to?
Yeah, I can start and you can just jump in. What you can see on this page 9 is, I think we were starting with Clytie's input with composting. And then we also turned into some kind of energy policies, also in regard to Australia. The work that also I think Catherine did on heating and air conditioning. And you can just see here on these coordinates where, for example, cooling for all the residents, which is very important for them, how that would fit into all of these coordinates. I think we didn't really go into investing for futures there, but you can see, like, for example, that for surviving GEL, that there is a 3 hours equity for all the residents, or could be this kind of policy. Surplus, we rather thought in the sense of, let's say, natural surplus, the sun surplus that is redistributed to the citizens.
Maybe, Marcus, we should say what the policy is first, which is that the federal government is saying they're going to offer 3 hours of free energy a day during the day when there's surplus renewable energy. And so that would be to every household. We're not sure whether it's every billable electricity user, whether it's businesses as well, or just households. And it would mean that people who don't have their own solar panels, like renters or people who can't afford them, would still get the benefit of lower energy prices. So that was the actual policy. And then what we were trying to figure out is where does that fit within, to what extent it is a community economy policy. Yeah. And Marcus was talking about that with jumping in.
Right. So what's the one about in the caring for commons row about the shift in subjectivities?
I think the idea there was that, you know, enrolling, if everybody is benefiting from the solar renewable experiment, it's going to be harder to resist it, which is a lot of misinformation is going on at the moment in Australia about renewables, basically funded by the fossil fuel industry. But I mean, if everybody gets some benefit from the renewables, there's some kind of shift potentially in perspective around what the benefit of it is. But the other thing is that we were thinking that because it's going to be 3 hours in the middle of the day, there's going to have to be behavior change to actually benefit from it. And when people put solar panels on their houses, they often do engage in behavior change, like they start to think about when they're going to put the appliances on during the day, etc., and calculate all that kind of thing. Whereas most people who don't have access to those things don't do that. Whereas now potentially anyone could. And then the other benefit would be a lot of the elderly people who are in poor areas and experience a lot of the urban heating could use this to cool their houses down. I mean, the other side of it, of course, is it's still very much around consuming energy and promoting the consumption of energy as opposed to lowering your consumption. But anyway, that was some of the discussion we had.
Right.
Yeah.
And you did it by just basing it on one policy and just sort of unpacking that policy.
We did, although we'd had a bit of more of a discussion around how composting also does that shift in subjectivity. And then we got on to thinking about how policies interact with each other, and how just thinking about one in isolation from its connection to other things, which is what Marcus brought up about consumption, for instance, in relation to this policy, or when you're thinking about composting, how it relates to food policy, for instance. That kind of work of integration is something that really needs more work, because so much of intervention is around one thing.
Yeah.
That's
great.
I think that's what we covered.
Great, thanks for that. So the next one, Hannah, how have you? Oh, look at that! beautifully organized table.
But it cannot be touched. As soon as you do anything, it just add rows at the bottom and then kind of shifts things around. So it's nice to look at, but it's
all right. So we're all looking, but we're not hands off.
Where are we looking?
So this is on page 11 of 16.
And we maybe you still here, Isaac? Yes, you are. You changed your background. Lovely. Some Aurora. Do you want to say something about the policy that we were working with? Because we did the same with one policy and tried to understand it, referencing the coordinates.
Yeah, there's the New South Wales government. I've lost the page now. It's a policy for reduced waste, and it's called the Waste Less Recycle More initiative. And it's funded as part of the Better Waste and Recycling Fund from the New South Wales state government. So this policy provides a lot of support to repair cafes in New South Wales. It provides funding streams, and it provides support through government resources, listings on government websites and so on. But I think maybe mainly the financial support and the recognition of the New South Wales government that reducing consumption and recycling more as part of that strategy, repair cafes really matter. And then there's a whole load of things that will unfold in the protocols in terms of living well, surviving well, reskilling, investing in futures, keeping the commons open.
I think we found it really quite useful was the last few words we could exchange to understand the policy with regards to the coordinates or unpack it. It would almost be interesting also to take another policy that we think is perhaps not so aligned with community economies thinking and see what that would mean if it then wouldn't work as well. Because we felt like we had quite a bit to say here, but I imagine that wouldn't be the case if it was a less well-aligned policy. But one thing we're thinking about was whether the policy kind of has to address or be strong in all the coordinates, or if it can be just kind of ignorant in a couple. What we said was that it cannot work against any of this, but we're trying to balance to what extent it needs to be. Right now I'm speaking to the people, my love. Yeah. Great, you got smoothie. I'm happy for you. The reporting back on things here. And on that, we said we saw this policy as bringing together people from different ages, different classes possibly, because this was also the way it seemed to be implemented was so that you can actually repair things and then it'd be sold or gifted on to people who need them, which was a bit new to me because the repair cafes here tend to be that you show up, repair your own thing, which has a lot of value as well in that you upskill and encounter others. But this was yet another dimension then.
And Isaac, what's the funding being used for? Is it for the like venue, but also staffing or?
To some extent staffing, but yes, definitely the higher premises, some help with the transportation. There's Bauer will collect a lot of items that can be restored or recycled, so people don't have to necessarily take it to the Bauer cafe. But Bauer will collect things, so there's financing for different aspects of their work.
Yeah.
In a similar policy here would be then that the municipality provides space, heavily subsidized space, so that it can be like pretty accessible in a old store or something that would be too expensive for this type of organization to rent on like a market based.
Yeah. They might get below market rate access to a premises that the government owns or something like that. I'm not sure how that works for Bauer.
Just looking at the time, Jen, we probably should move on to the third group. Yeah.
Yep. Great. So the third group was Ricard, Heidi, and I. And we sort of had a bit of a random conversation because we were waiting for Bianca to join us and she didn't make it. So we sort of ended up talking a lot about the food networks because of Heidi's interest in that. And what we tended to do was just put ideas, rather than take one policy and systematically look at it, we just put various policy ideas into some of the coordinates. So we did that, and I can see the table's done that, inserting cells randomly. So there are some examples, some things in there about food-based examples. We also thought about Clytie's composting example as you know, compost is in a way literally the leftover. And thinking about what would it mean to put compost in as a way of distributing surplus, and thinking about that as a community resource. So we had the food examples, and then I had and when I was thinking about this workshop, I came across heard a story about the Self-Employed Women's Association in India who are using a parametric insurance policy so that women vendors are covered when conditions on the streets hit a certain temperature for a certain number of days. Then they receive an insurance payout so they don't have to go and sell products on the street and you know, suffer, you know, things that happen in extreme heat conditions. But it's actually exactly the same insurance principle as that's now also being used by the great big insurers for parametric insurance for great big crops. And again, so that when certain climatic conditions are reached, the policy automatically kicks in and farmers get a payout for loss of crop. And in Sawa's case, the women get a payout for loss of being able to go and do work. And at least the things I've read about the Sawa policy is that it's proving you know, a real lifeline for women and enabling them to survive well in those changing climatic conditions. So we put that in there as just as another policy example. So I don't know if anyone's got any observations to make. Yeah, Kath.
Well, I mean, I remember one other thing came up where we were wondering whether the kind of work that Ricard's talking about in terms of these digitized platforms, you know, informed by ethical economies and so on, could be used as a way of fighting back in the compost area against the for-profit sector, where Clytie was saying local governments just like things to be easy. And so the big companies come in and say, we can do the whole thing for you, just pay us X million. And it's a sort of a power play between the local governments run like a corporation too. And so the corporation, they kind of know each other. Whereas all the work that's done on that you were talking about, like people doing it themselves or small groups doing it, it's like handing over power to the community, which seems so scary. But we were wondering whether there's some kind of an interface there that could be developed so that the more community-oriented forms of composting could be somehow, I don't know, put onto some platform so that the local government could feel confident that it was organized or somehow, or, you know, more transparent. And that seems to be, you know, an area like figuring out why some municipalities in Paris do it and some don't, figuring out what it is that's the difference there. But then how would you actually strengthen the ability for the community to take charge of it? And I'm just wondering whether some of that kind of digitized digital whatever interfaces could be, that's a sort of a place that sort of development that could be done that would be then allowing the governments to be more confident somehow. I don't know. Whether Rickard, whether you've got any comment on that. Rickard.
I agree that is the type of discussion that we have about these common infrastructures that could be useful for different things. We also put the example of this platform that allows community and public policy support for funding projects in regarding to promote the benefit of the community. This type of resources that not just is a platform that considers how they share the knowledge, how also provide data that can be useful for research, is the way that we can grow up through a technology in the sense of community. And everyone has their own role. Maybe public policies has support the promotion of these platforms, but also the researchers can be, our perspective can be very useful, considering the data that it's collected from these platforms in order to grow up with a project or whatever. It's a type of these infrastructures that can be also nice, collectively commons digital infrastructures in this case. Thank you for the comment, Catherine.
No, it'd be great. I think Clytie needs to visit you.
When you want.
Oh, we all do. We all want to visit you.
All right, that's lovely. Well, I'm looking at the time, and I mean, you know, all we wanted to do was, in a way, get the ball rolling around a conversation about thinking about that connection between policies and a sort of community economies agenda for policies. So, you know, it's obviously something that people are interested in working on, and where there's, you know, much work to be done. So I think we can just think of this session as being a sort of, you know, a conversation opener. And we've heard about some policies from different contexts, and then had to think about, well, what does it mean to put them into a community economies context? And interesting that we all went to the community economy coordinates table.
Yeah,
which is,
I think that's interesting, Jen, in terms of thinking about our second take at this with the other group next week. Maybe we should just only have that, because I think it's too confusing to try and think of all the different frameworks. But anyway, we can talk about that at another time. But this was great. Thank you for everyone to play with this with us. And really, because I mean, it's a sort of thing we could have a more developed workshop at another time if we had a sense of what really works. And, you know, we don't have to leave it here. It's something that seems like there's a lot of interest, and it could become one of those collective projects that has all sorts of, you know, ways of going forward. So thank you for inputting at this stage, the early stage.
That's great. So thank you, everyone. And for those at the beginning of the day, enjoy the rest of the day. For those in the evening, enjoy your sleeps. Have a good sleep. Have a good dinner. Hi, little Lizzie.
She's gorgeous. Right.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.